right. Joining me tonight, Miss Emily Wolfe. So happy to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing good. All things considered, I'm doing pretty solid. But things could get crazy. These crazy things seem to pop up and then they kind of go back to, but we're
Yeah,
entering phase God only knows coming up here. So,
totally. Very
but
strange.
I know you just got done recording an album. I definitely want to hear about that, but let's go a little before that. And usually I ask, like, what were you doing March, and how did your March and April get rocked up and blah blah blah. But now it's been so long. It's been like almost 10 months now. It has been 10 months. So I
Yeah.
guess kind of condense this crazy almost full year you've had, and what did you have planned for the summer, and then how did you adapt through the summer, and then it's been fall already. Just kind of give us a little bit of a synopsis of what you've been up to through this whole thing.
Yeah. So last year I was supposed to be on the road for pretty much all summer and then everything got canceled because of COVID. And I just started writing. Um, I had I had like four songs ready to record. And then um, they were like demos that I had created with the producer who did my upcoming record. His name's Michael Schumann. He plays bass in Queens of the Stone Age, which is one of my favorite bands. So I'm stoked about that. But we started passing demos back and forth, and I made these four demos with him, and my team started pitching them to labels and stuff. And throughout, let's see, throughout April, March, May, pretty much spring, those demos were just being pitched to labels and stuff. And during that time, I was just kind of writing, trying to finish a record on the off chance that I did get a deal signed. So months and months went by, and I was just writing, and then I did get a deal. So,
Congratulations.
hey, thanks. It's been quite the fight to get one. Music industry is total bullshit, but
It's
you
a
know,
tough mother. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah. So basically, I just kind of occupied my time writing this record. Um, did a lot of cooking. You know, I didn't get into the bread baking like everybody did, but I did. I cook with a lot of butter now, and that's a lot of fun. I don't know. That's just like what I started doing is cooking dinner and stuff, which I hadn't before, really. But so yeah, just writing and cooking.
That's solid. That's a
Yeah.
good way to spend downtime, writing and cooking. So, who did you end up signing with, or are you not going to say until some announcements come down the line?
Oh yeah, I can say there is a new label. It's an indie label called Crow's Feet, and there's a guy named Michael Kaplan who started it. He's been in A&R for a really long time, and done a lot of stuff like signing. He signed like the Allman Brothers back in the day, and
Mm,
just a lot of people like Genuine. If you're a fan of Pony,
mm.
signed
Hell
Genuine.
yeah.
uh, yeah, he's a great guy. He's super like excited to put out music that's different, I guess, and it's not just you know he's not just signing whatever TikTok person is gonna be famous
Yeah.
tomorrow or something, So
Right.
yeah, he's great. He's great, and the label's cool, and it's small, and
Cool.
yeah.
And to kind of crack that nut a little bit more, because you did mention you had something you said about it's been a long something rather, and we all know that story. But is getting signed something that you've really kind of wanted to have transpire over the years, or is it something that's like, oh, this is the time, or let's try this again, see what's out there? Because obviously in this day and age, I mean, you have people representing you, you have tons of talent, you have opportunities, you have friends in good places. what did you find is going to be the benefit for you doing it with a label?
Yeah, so that's a good question. There was a long, long time that I didn't want to be on a label, because there's always like the horror stories of, oh, if you get signed, they're going to tell you who to be, how to walk, how to dress, what to sound like, and stuff. And those are absolutely true, but I think signing with an independent kind of new label is completely different in that regard, because um, they appreciate that I don't want to be told any of that stuff. I want to make those decisions on my own. But for the longest time, I was like so anti-label, and then I realized, like, oh, I want to get to the next level. I I basically, all I want to do is play arenas every night when that comes back. Eventually, like, that's like the ultimate goal, is to play huge crowds every night for the rest of my life. And so I think at this point, I just, like, I needed that funding to get there. And I've never had a marketing budget before. So that is kind of funny to me. It's like, seeing a number of a marketing budget is very exciting, because it's like, oh, I don't have to, work at Rock and Roll Rentals every single day, which I do, and save up money to put this in front of people. It's like there's some help there finally. So that's the appeal for me, I think, in just like partnering with people who have my best interests in mind, and they're not going to try and change artistically what I want to do, or steal anything from me. Yeah, I mean, the label thing is a really tricky deal. I honestly think I kind of got lucky in that regard. There's so many labels who have heard my stuff and who have said no, like brutally said no to me. So it's been quite the fight, but I think things are looking up.
That's cool. And it sounds like, like if you get a good label situation, like you sound like you have, and hopefully as time goes on, it does continue to be that for you. It's really just like having another teammate, right? Just another teammate who's got your back, who's going to put you in some more awesome situations, look out for you. So that's great. I'm happy for you. I hope it does work out to all positives, and you don't have to deal with any of the negatives. And I definitely want to dive into, because that's such a relevant thing in the music industry, and with what the music industry is at this moment. I really want to get into that. But before we do that, let's go back a little bit, because I want to get to my favorite part of this, the podcast, which is learning more about kind of your root structure as a person, but also as a musician. So I'm always interested in what was your, how was music hitting you as a child? How was music hitting you as a teenager? When did you start playing your instrument? And, if there's any instances you remember about, like, oh, when I heard this, or I had to do this when I heard that, or I saw that. So kind of tell us. I'm not actually sure I even know where you're from, Emily. I might be Houston. Is that right?
So I actually am I was born in Raleigh, North Carolina, but I moved quite a bit when I was younger, because of my dad's job. He managed a grocery store. He managed HEB for a long time. Like, he was like the regional manager of like several different stores. So that would take us to different places. So I did live in Corpus Christi for a bit when I was younger, but then moved to Austin around age 8.
Okay. So, wow, I didn't even know that. So you've been here since you were 8.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. And so, yeah, tell us about, how music took over your life, and kind of when you started playing, when you started singing, because you're such a good singer, such a good player. Tell us how that all started and developed.
Thanks. I'm so glad you think so. That means a lot to me, especially coming from
No,
you because
just
I love
listening
your
to you.
stuff.
What's that?
I said, especially coming from you because I love your stuff.
Oh, that's so sweet of you. Yeah, no, I love to watch you perform. That's for sure. But I was just revisiting you, obviously, before I wanted to go back and listen to a bunch of stuff. And man, your voice is real. I mean, the guitar playing goes without saying. You're
Oh,
just
thanks.
a special guitar player. But the voice is just, it stands out too very well. And I hadn't heard. I went to Spotify, and the first song on there, which is tricky, right? Because I don't know how you feel about the order of your 5 songs or whatever and how that evolves. Because it's like, wait a minute, why is that one up there? I don't want them to listen to that one as much as they are. but
Totally.
but the first one up there is what is it? But it's a real slow soul one.
Oh,
And
Sticky. Yeah.
yeah, oh, I hadn't heard that one before. And whew, golly, that's a good soul song. I mean,
Thanks.
anyway, to make you, not to embarrass you too much, but where did it all start for you? How did it all get going?
So I I remember the first time I saw a guitar was when I was 5 or 6, and my mom and sister and I went to, I really think it was a thrift store or like a really shitty Walmart. I wish I could remember where it was, but it was I even forgot where it was, but I remember seeing um, this guitar, and it was like a child size like acoustic. I still have it actually. It's in my closet
Wow,
somewhere. But
amazing.
I was like, I saw it and I was like, this is the coolest shit I've ever seen. So my mom got it for me because I wouldn't shut up about it. And I mean, ever since then, I just kind of never stopped. My next guitar was like one of those like Strat um, knockoffs. It's called the Slammer
Hmm.
Hammer, and it was black. And so that was my next one. And then it kind of spiraled out of control from there. And Christmas presents were always like guitar, like
Wow, so you started that young. You got the bug that young, huh?
yeah. I
That's
mean, it's just
amazing.
always been the thing because there's just something so soothing about it, and um, it feels correct to play guitar to me.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
it just like fits right here, and I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to do. Um, and but I was like a really shy kid too, so I wasn't in bands or anything in like high school. Like I wasn't that cool yet or whatever. I mean, who knows if I'm that cool now? But growing up, it's
Oh, you're
like,
cool.
hey, thanks. I wasn't fishing, I promise you.
No, you aren't. No,
um,
you aren't.
but yeah, I would just kind of sit in my room and play, and um, I didn't really start writing songs until like 10th grade when I started having like feelings, romantic feelings for people, and then that's really when things kind of unraveled. Um, so I just kind of always did it by myself, and then in college I went to St. Ed's on South Congress. It
Mhm.
was the best time. Loved it. Made a ton of friends there, and really felt like it was where I was supposed to be. Um, and I had a little acoustic duo band in college, and that kind of went. It was like the coolest gig we could find is the coffee shop on campus, and it was
Mhm.
such a thrill to me. And so it just kind of built off of that. And I was in a relationship with someone who was friends with a booker at the Mohawk back in 2012, and so that was where my very first like gig was. Um, and so ever since then, I was like, this is what I'm gonna do. This is some cool ass shit. Like it feels so good to play live music, and um, of course, like 80% of my first sets were cover songs, but then snowball year after year, and it's like they all become
Mhm.
original. And so yeah, now I'm here. I mean, been doing it for about 9 years. Um, it's been an up and down roller coaster, but I don't think that I would want to have it in any other way because it's like it's really unpredictable in an exciting way. Sometimes it's heart wrenching, but you know.
Totally. Well, I didn't know you started so young. I don't know why I would know that, but that, yeah, that's, I mean, that's going almost to the cradle. That's amazing. And I didn't know your Austin roots were so strong either. So who were you? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do want to hear about you, like who your favorite people to listen to through all those years you just went by were, but also when you were talking about starting your own thing and getting it going, you didn't start as like the guitar slinger type, right? You started as more of a acoustic songwriter kind of thing. Is that right?
It's true. Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
So tell us
yeah,
first, like who your favorite acts were growing up, and I'm sure it's a lot of the same people everyone loves and gets, people titillated in their teen years. But tell us who they were, but then also maybe some of those kind of peripheral people that you really liked.
yeah. So I really liked listening to my dad's music, which
Oh,
was classic
nice.
rock, like, you know, The Who. Um, he put on Neil Young a lot, um, the Eagles, you know, classic dad stuff that have
Mhm.
always loved and always will. And then my mom would always put on Motown stuff. Um, so there was classic rock and Motown simultaneously kind of infiltrating me every day. And then my sister, who's 3 years older than me, would put on like Dashboard Confessional. And so,
Mhm.
and like pop, you know. So there was that element of like really intense lyrics from my sister, and pop arrangement from her, Motown stuff from my mom that was like, this is like authenticity in a record. And then my dad, like, listen to these fucking riffs, you know? So
Mhm.
I think all of that combined is why I play what I play and why I like what I like. Is just because of my family, you know? Um, and so, yeah, you know, I mean, I just love anything that makes you feel something, no matter if it's anger or sadness or, you know, excitement, whatever it is. I just think any kind of music that makes you like really feel something or makes you recognize something in yourself that you didn't before. That's that's important to me.
Yeah. And so moving to where we were, what else I was asking you. So you started with like an acoustic thing, and then that changed at some point. When did you and how did you decide to kind of make that leap? I'm sure you pick up the acoustic guitar all the time as well, but from your stage, persona, performance style, how
Yeah.
and when did that change?
That changed actually. A lot of it had to do with live performing. Um, because I did used to go and I used to play acoustic shows all the time, just solo, and it was acoustic and just my voice. And the kind of venues I was playing, if it wasn't Cactus Cafe, people would just talk over me. And so I think
Hmm.
that ignited some kind of rage in me that I was like,
Hmm.
I'm trying to fucking sing to you people and you're not listening. So I was
Yeah.
like, okay, if I can go electric, turn up my amp, I can just escape from whatever may happen in the audience and just play. So for me, going electric was more of a way for me to get out of myself and out of my own head.
Hmm.
Because really, like, the purpose of playing for me is just to escape from whatever is going on around me. Um, and so, you know, the louder the music is, the easier I can do that. Um, so, and you know, I still kind of get a little scared to play slower, softer songs in my sets, um, but they're there. But that's a big reason why I went electric. And then there was a point to it was like 6 years ago. I was out in LA, and there was this producer named Rob Cavallo, and he did like all the Green Day stuff in the 90s and like Alanis and everything. And I had my band out there with me, and he was kind of seeing if he like wanted to, I guess, sign me on his label.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, he kind of devastated me. He was like, if you just studied up on your like music theory and got your guitar chops up, like that would be really great. You could really shine. And I was like, oh my God, you've exposed me. I don't know anything about music theory. So then I went home. He didn't sign me, by the way, but I went home, and then just night after night up till 2, 3 a.m., studying theory and studying riffs and B.B. King, Stevie Ray Vaughan, all these classic blues players. And I was like, what is it about them that I love? And it's that they all sound unique and they all have a sound. And I was like, if I can find one of those things for me, then I think I could stand out among, you know, every person who's out there, hopefully. And so that was like what I was trying to do, is
Mm-hmm.
gain a bunch of knowledge and figure out my own sound, you know? Yeah.
So did you go from, I mean, how good of a, let's just say for lack of a better term, how good of a soloist were you? And within that term, I mean, riff master, solo, uh, someone who can really blaze. Did you go from not being able to do that at all to being able to do it like you do now? Or were you already pretty functional at that point? Because I mean, like going back to the question that I asked, I mean, making that jump, that's not a jump many people make, if any people, to be honest. It's so. Did you already have some action in those fingers where you could like, oh, I can, you had to practice your ass off, I'm sure, but or did that go from like 0 to 60?
Yeah, I did have, I was good. I think I was good. I was a good guitar player. But I hadn't yet allowed myself to be a lead guitarist.
Mm-hmm.
Because before I went, so I did the acoustic solo thing starting out, switched to electric, but in between then and now, I had a band, um, and I wasn't confident enough in myself to sit down and say, okay, I don't need another guitar player in my band. I don't need a keyboard player in my band. I want to just focus on honing my craft and being the top of the triangle in my band, me, bass,
Mm-hmm.
drums. And so
Yeah.
I think it just came with, I don't know. I think there was something that told me, okay, I need to rein in what I know I can do, and I need to just let myself do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because there were like people in my band who were very against the shredding thing. I don't, for reasons I don't know. But I kind of had been told this time and time again, like, oh, you don't want to shred, you don't want to shred. And so I was like, oh, I guess I don't want to shred, you know? But then I did it one
Whoa.
night at Stubbs, and I was like, that is so fun. I'm going to keep doing
Yeah.
this. And
Yeah.
that was the shift, I think. There was this one gig I did at Stubbs, and the keyboard player and the other guitar player, like I couldn't afford to pay them for that gig. And so I was like, I'm just going to do this on my own with a bass player and a drummer. And so it was like really great. It's like,
Mm.
okay, this must be the way to do it then. Um, and and then after that, I was like, okay, if I'm gonna be a lead guitar player, I need to sit down and like figure this out and really, one, learn what I want my tone to be, learn what I want to get across via guitar strings, like how I should do it, you know, like exercises, how,
Mm-hmm.
what are the exercises I need to do to get my pinky to work. Um, so it was just like a lot of like, deep practice, but it also came with the switch of deciding that I'm going to be the actual front woman of this music, that I'm going to lead this band, and that I'm going to be like in the front. Like, if I'm going to do this, I have to be really good.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where, you know, that's where it came from.
That's so, I love hearing that because um, although you started much earlier than me, at least in terms of facilitating or manifesting music, because I started pretty much when I was 15 and I started playing guitar. And I didn't really start singing until I was 20. And I was horrible at both when I started, and I had to work really hard. But you know, the first like 4 years, I practiced a good amount. You know, I got pretty okay. And but then when I was 20, I was like, I got what I called, you know, the tunnel vision. I was like, because prior to that, I just didn't think it was possible to be a professional musician. I was like, I didn't grow up playing this music. I have no right to do this. I can't do it. And then, you know, you go through those fun college years and you're exploring. And then I started to learn, like, wait a minute. A lot of these people I listened to picked up the guitar at 15. A lot of these people listen to the same people I listen to. And then I start hearing about people that, well, they, you know, like you mentioned the Allman Brothers. It's like, oh, they were just playing 10 hours a day. That's how they got so good. So I was
Yeah.
like, well, maybe I should try that. You
Yeah.
know, I was like, I'm going to start practicing 5 hours a day. And so that's what I was doing for, you know, a good couple years, 2, 3 years. And I still love to practice. Love it. I practice all the time. And but no, I did the same thing. I made a conscious choice, like, I guess this can be done. I'm going to do it. Let's
Yeah.
do this. And so I was practicing all the time. Who would you say are some of your you mentioned Stevie and BB, and that definitely comes through. Who are some of the guitar players? Like, for me, I would play along with people. I'm sure you did
Yeah.
that a lot too. Like, who were you playing along with and trying to emulate or just make yourself better with?
Stevie for sure. I mean, there
Mm-hmm.
were like, I mean, I memorized Couldn't Stand the Weather. And, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I can't
Nice.
play it like him, obviously, but I mean, I could make it through every song, you know, and sound
Mm-hmm.
pretty decent. And so there was just something about that record that I was like, this, the way that he uses his right hand, just so cool. And um, so Stevie's a huge one. And then, I mean, oddly enough, like a jazz player named Barney Kessel, like there's,
Mm-hmm.
if you watch videos of him, there's just something about the way that he plays where it's like, it's obviously like not fuzzy and like that and like in your face, but there's just something so authentic about watching him play. It's like he just feels everything that he's playing. And so I just kind of studied his videos and I was like watching him and trying to figure out like what he was thinking and what he was feeling. And it's, I don't know, you should watch him though, because he's really incredible. Um, who else? Neil Young. Um,
Mm-hmm.
man, who else? I'm like drawing a blank. Angus Young,
I can see that one.
you know.
I
Um,
can see that one for sure.
and there, you know, like Hendrix, of course, but there's the, I only kind of drew parts from him. Like I think like how he plays it so different. Like he uses the guitar in such a weird way that like that's
Mm-hmm.
really inspiring to me, because it's like he'll play notes that just don't fit and then like do like insane sounds like, so that, I mean, that's cool to see. And then I mean, Van Halen, like that's another thing. Like he'll go in and out of a key like so much in one song, but somehow it works. So that's, I mean, that's a big one too. Yeah.
Yeah, Hendrix was huge, like all of us. But I mean, Hendrix is the reason I picked up the guitar flat out. I mean, I picked up the guitar because of him, plain and simple. And he was definitely an obsession for about 7 years. But in terms of how it translated into my own playing, I never really chased, and I was obsessed with Hendrix for years. But in terms of my playing, I never chased like his sound, and I never chased his like I never learned Little Wing. I mean, I did for a little bit, but even that, for me, what I was learning from Hendrix and loved to practice Hendrix was like early Hendrix and even like bootleg early Hendrix, because Hendrix is not only was his, you know, his sound and his tone what it was, groundbreaking. You know, you can't throw enough stuff at it, but his rhythm, he is an insane rhythm guitar player, like as good as any that's ever lived. You know what I mean? And when you
Yeah.
hear him like at live at Monterey come out to that Killing Floor, and I remember hearing that when I was 15, I was like, what the so his rhythm really got me, and I would play along with a lot of his early stuff, and even like pre Jimi Hendrix Experience. Like there's so much bootleg stuff on Hendrix, so much, and like deep channel studio recordings of him. And so I was playing along with a lot of that stuff. But yeah, we have that in common. We really dug into
Yeah.
bared our teeth and got into the material. So I'm interested to know what's your writing process like? Do you start with the lyrics? Do you start with the riff? Do you mix it up? Do you start with the melody, and do you write every day? Do you go into like intense month long periods where like you're writing every day and then take a break? What's that like for you?
Yeah. So I'd say 90% of the time the music comes first. Because it's really tough for me to write um, like lyrics and then put music to it. Because I'm such a like I feel like my songs are so based on phonetics of this word sounds right here. You know, this 3-syllable word is what's going to make the hook stand out. And like, so a lot of it is me just kind of sitting here and um, messing around on guitar and then just like spouting out gibberish, like melodic gibberish until it actually turns into words. And
Yeah.
then, I mean, that's kind of always been the way that I write, just because if I don't do it that way and I do lyrics first,
Right.
it's almost too
I'm gonna
slow,
mute my.
and it doesn't really get my emotions out the same way. Uh, let's see, or sometimes too. I mean, like certain little phrases will pop into my head, or like something someone said. Like I have this huge note on my phone of just random shit that I've heard people say or that have come out of a conversation or something. And then if I'm stuck writing a song, I'll kind of reference it and see if there's anything that'll fit that. Um, so it's mainly based like it's mainly like music first, lyrics second.
Yeah, that notion. I'm very much the same way. I think a lot of people are. I think, you know, the singer songwriter genre, you know, they probably start with lyrics more than the rock and rollers and stuff like that. Um, but one thing that fascinates me, and I've talked to one or two people about this, is I do the exact same thing of what you just said. Is, you know, melodic gibberish, right? There's the sound you're singing with your guitar, you know, it sounds right. It comes out of nowhere. At least that's what it is for me. It comes out of nowhere. And then it sounds right. And you're like, okay, now I got something there. And then the melodic gibberish. And then from there, it transforms into a song with a subject, most of the time, with a subject and lyrics based around the subject. And it all comes together and makes sense. And for me, what's so weird and unexplicable is how you get from a melodic sound that sounds right with no words, and then somehow a word takes form there, and then
Yeah.
a whole story takes form. It's really weird. Have you ever thought about that? Or maybe it's one of those things. It's magic. You don't want to dissect it too much. You'll ruin the magic of it. But when I hear that somebody that produces creates like that, I'm always like, yes, that's the way it is. And then when I hear somebody else describe it, I'm like, wow, that is weird. I guess you just describe it as magic. And have you ever thought about that at all?
Yeah, it's so weird. Like sometimes it'll start with like just gibberish, and then like a couple days later I'm like, oh my god, there's the song's done. What?
Yeah,
So it's like
yeah.
it is, I guess it is magic. It's, I don't know, it's like I don't know if it's fate, if the song was already written and I was just the thing that it came through. Like, I don't know, there is like an idea that I always wondered though, like artists who have passed, like where does that talent go? Like what happens to it? Does it just kind of float around, and then like, or do the songs exist already and then they find the writer? You know, I don't know, maybe.
So you're saying like the talent that a performer possesses, what happens to the talent when they pass? Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
like
Yeah.
Janice, Stevie, like where did it go?
Well, doesn't it go into it goes into those who receive it, you know, our listeners who respond to it, it goes to them to a certain point, but then it probably stops its motion. And then with people like us, we'll pat ourselves on the back a little bit, or people who create, who are influenced by people, it goes into that new living being, which is why there's so many musicians out there, as opposed to back in the, it's like this exponential growth because, how many millions of people have been influenced by BB King and Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jimi Hendrix. And now you look around how much talent there is. It's insane. I mean, how many amazing guitar players are in Austin and how many amazing guitar players are on YouTube? So I
That's
guess it
true.
goes into all those people. I don't
It's
know.
so wild to think about. It's a good point.
It's fun. It's fun. It's fun. I like your perspective on it. So, kind of fast forward, bring it around to what we started with. You're on a label, very exciting. Um, you just recorded a new album. Is that an LP or an EP?
It's an LP. It's 10
Sweet.
songs. Um,
Nice.
yeah,
What
yeah,
do what like you and your people, your managers and your label people, what are you guys thinking? I mean, how are you guys going to move forward for the next 6-12 months?
yeah. It's gonna be interesting to see how other people navigate this, but um, I mean, I do know that I don't want to hold the record for 8 months. I think I think the only thing to do is to maybe release a few singles up until maybe April, and then release the record, I think. And then, or maybe one single, and I'm not super sure what the plan is yet. But I do know that it's going to be important to figure out how to keep the fire going until October, when touring is supposed to come back. Um, so it's going to be interesting, but I think it'll be okay. Because there's other things, like I've got a guitar coming out with the Epiphone in
Oh,
March.
nice. That's
Eh,
cool.
Yeah. So that's going to be there, and the record's going to come out. s- you know, it's going to be tough to get it to completely match up with touring coming back, just because nobody knows what's going to happen. If
Yeah.
by some miracle the vaccine cures all of us immediately, and in 2 months we're all playing massive shows, that would be ideal. But um, I just don't think that's going to happen. And I guess we'll see. I think it's going to be singles and then album, and then so I guess social content, which it's like I miss the real thing so much. because it's not the same playing live streams
Yeah.
and stuff. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
The thing for me is like, I've been pretty okay through the whole thing. I hit some pockets of boredom where I just got bored. Other than that, I don't have anything to complain about. My family and I have been fortunate to stay healthy, and we're doing fine. And I've been able to get a lot of work done, no doubt about it. The thing that's kind of hit me recently is like through this whole thing, I've been like, it's a little bit. I was able to go on a long tour right before, so I was lucky that too because I got a bunch of good stuff in beforehand, but. So I've just been kind of had this in the back of my mind, like, yeah, it'll come back, it'll be back. And now the longer this goes, I'm like, there is no telling what it's going to look like, and what the infrastructure is going to look like, and what the industry is going to look like. I mean, it's unprecedented, and I just do not know what to expect. I don't think anyone can possibly know what's going to happen over the next 12, 24, 36 months,
yeah,
um, which kind of sucks. And this whole thing sucks. I think you haven't said this directly, but I think someone in your position probably would have found some silver lining through this process, whatever that may be. And I think a lot of people have, whether it's the pause of the life or a pivot here or there or what have you. But now that this keeps going, I don't know how many pivots can you make, and how many, you know,
yeah. There's
it's
definitely,
tricky.
ups and there's for sure upsides to it. I mean, really good things have come out of this, um, but also a lot of bads come out of it. But that's th- all change. I think all good change is preceded by chaos. So whatever this is, to me, it's chaos. So I think on the other side, it's going to come out better because you know if you look forward and this is over, people are going to be dying to go to shows. I know I'm dying to go to a show. Like,
Totally.
of course, I'm ready to play one, like more than anything. But if I could go see a live show right now and be totally cool and not even think about a virus, like, or social distancing or whatever, like that would be amazing. So I think another thing is like I just when touring comes back and I'm on the road, I'm not gonna take any single thing for granted. Like, you know, like before, if I had a sound person who was super rude to me, I'd be really annoyed by it. But now I'd be like, please be rude to me. Like, I'm fine with this. Like, I'm just happy to be here. So,
I think you hit the nail on the head. Totally. I mean, um, that is one thing. Like when you're in the music industry, and you've hinted at this in a few different ways through this conversation, but it is a grind. There's no doubt about it. It is a grind, and it has its pros and cons, and it's great to play, and it's awesome. And it's got its pains in the asses, but it's a nonstop grind. You pretty much are, and it's been like that since the beginning of the music industry. Like it's a hustler's game, it's a survivor's game. It's how hard can you work and how long can you do it for? And it's nonstop. But to have this time, like you said, and I was going to say the same thing as you were saying it, basically, is just not taking it for granted. You know what I mean? And that's one thing through this process. Like I'm still doing a ton of playing on my own and practicing, and it feels so good to just play my acoustic and sing or play my electric. It feels so good, and it's yeah. You don't take it for granted at all now. I feel like this resets us for the rest of our professional lives.
absolutely.
It's like it's so that's a blessing for sure. Last thing I wanted to ask you, um, before we put a pin in it, is because you've mentioned LA a couple times, and I know you recorded your new album out there, and you've been in Austin for so long. Kind of, Austin's been good to you. Austin loves you. Have you thought about moving other places? Have you ever thought about moving to California, Los Angeles? Full disclosure, my family and I were going to move to Los Angeles in June, and
Oh, cool.
that got postponed, and then it got pretty much nixed indefinitely.
Oh
So we
man.
postponed it 6 months till Thanksgiving. We were going to move in Thanksgiving, and then things are just terrible out there. It
Yeah.
doesn't, all the things we were moving out there for, which my wife and I both had some reasons to go out there. They don't exist. There's not, and quality of life is continuing to descend there. Anyway, back to you. Have you thought about living anywhere else? Have you thought about going out there to live, or you like Austin? You're good to go here.
I've thought about it. I think one day eventually I'll probably spend more time out there, but I just love Austin. Like, you know, my whole family's here and well, with the exception of my sister, but she's in San Diego. But um yeah, I just love Austin. I don't know if it's because I've been here forever or if it's because it is just that different than every city. But when when I go on the road and I experience every other city, like th- there are cool parts of every city, but also when I get back home, I'm just like, thank God, like this is my vibe, because it's like right in between New York and LA geographically, but also kind of in terms of vibe, like
Yeah.
because there's culture, but there's also fancy ass restaurants and a lot of hardworking people, and so I think I'll be here for a while, um, but we'll see. It's kind of you never know where life's gonna take you. So maybe one day I'll be
Cool.
back.
And for the record, I'll go on record as saying, since your pops worked for this fine company, HEB, best grocery store in the country, hands down.
Incredible.
As someone who's been on the road and all over the country and in and out of every grocery store coast to coast, HEB blows them all out of the water.
It's so true. It's crazy.
It's the best. It's like the perfect medium between Walmart and Whole Foods.
Yes.
It's just like quantity and quality, having a beautiful menage a trois with just everything else. With great prices. I mean, I
Yeah,
love HEB.
me too.
So, well, cool, Emily. I'm really excited for you. I'm glad to hear you're doing good, and thank you so much for doing this. It's great to chat with you. I look forward to hearing the new stuff, and I can't wait to see you on stage again. And
Yeah.
thank you. And good luck.
Yeah, I'm excited for your shows too. I'll be front row when you start playing
And
again.
when you start playing those arenas every day, and you need a little three-piece to open up for you,
Oh my god.
happy to do it.
Every night. Let's go.
Yeah, but I'll be happy to jump on there with you. Okay, Emily, you take care. I'll see you soon, I hope.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Thanks, Sam.